I was in the middle of the road walking to the other side, and he stopped me, and he's like, "Excuse me," and I was like, "Yes."
A teenager's quick thinking maybe saved her from an alleged predator who stopped her as she was walking alone in Arizona. We're going to take a look at surveillance video from the incident and break down officers' discussion with the victim with renowned predator catcher Chris Hansen. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Back in October, a 14-year-old girl was walking home from school in Glendale, Arizona, when all of a sudden, the driver of a car stopped right by her, seemingly to ask a question. A home's Ring security camera shows a red sedan at a stop sign and the teen, in a red top, crossing in front of the car at the intersection. And according to this girl, the man inside asked her questions about directions and then wanted her phone number. So to talk more exactly about what happened here, I want to bring back onto the show, friend of mine, renowned predator catcher, host of Takedown on TruBlu, and the podcast Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. Chris Hansen, good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
And I wanted you on not just to talk about the story, but also, and it's not just because we're matching today,
right, exactly,
which I
nice.
don't know how this happened.
Yeah, we should get on the phone more often. Yeah.
But I know, right? But in all seriousness, this is, we'll get into the specifics of it, but broad daylight, brazen. Do you see these kinds of things?
Well, you do, and these guys think they can get away with it, and it's this predatory attitude that we see even with the guys who come into our sting houses and think that they can get away with this. Guys who are aware that various law enforcement agencies around the country do these things every day. Guys that are aware we do these for Takedown on TruBlu and elsewhere virtually every month of the year. And they talk about it in the chats. I don't want to meet Chris Hansen. I don't want to meet Sheriff so-and-so. And they show up anyway. So they think that they can get away with it. They think no one's looking. But as we know, the average human being is picked up on video more than a dozen times a day. And thank God, because it leads to arrests.
But it's like, it's such a classic story. If someone comes up to you and says something to you, what do you do? If someone approaches you in a car, I mean, this is like a textbook example.
Well, exactly. So you don't talk to them, you get away. Parents have to have this conversation with their children, but this child took it to a different level and really showed poise under stress, fire, danger, however you want to put it. But the fact that she was able to think on her feet and do what she did led to an arrest and probably a successful prosecution.
Let's talk about this. So the victim's family got in touch with Glendale police, and an officer was able to speak with the teenager about what happened. Now, the video is blurred for her protection, but take a listen.
I was walking, and I was in the middle of the road walking to the other side, and he stopped me, and he's like, "Excuse me," and I was like, "Yes," and he's like, "Do you know where the nearest McDonald's is?" And I was like, "No, because I don't live around here anymore." So I was like, "The only one that I know is the one down here, the 57.
Is that what you told him?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he's like, "Okay," and he's like, "Do you want to exchange numbers so we can, like, I don't know." He said, like, "Do you want to exchange numbers, something?" I was like, "No, I have to get home. My mom's expecting me, and I can't talk to strangers." And he just kept on asking, and then I was like, "Okay, whatever." So I gave him my mom's number, and then I walked away.
Good job.
That's what I told her.
Yeah. No, you did everything. You did everything you needed to do.
Exactly. She did everything she needed to do. She was able to walk away safely after giving the man, her mom's number.
Genius, right?
Great.
What a sharp kid. And I don't know that this is on my checklist of Chris Hansen's safety measures to tell parents to do, but what a great idea.
That should be it. And honestly, it goes to, you mentioned it before, how important it is to have those conversations with your children and to be open with them about it. Because particularly, I mean, the truth is for young girls, teenage girls, it's I don't know if it's different between young boys and young girls, but it feels like particularly for them, you have to add an additional layer of awareness.
Well, and here we are with a, suffice it to say, old-fashioned type predator case, the kinds that we were warned about when we were children. Don't talk to strangers. And if a stranger approaches you, tell your parents, tell the police, tell some adult who is not the stranger. But, we worry about the internet. We worry about, these different social media platforms upon which predators can approach children. But here we are in broad daylight in a very safe area of Arizona, and this happens.
And it's under the ruse of, I just want directions.
Yeah. Oh, and you want to change numbers. Why are you asking that of a child? It's grooming, face-to-face grooming. And it shows you how bold this guy is. Because a lot of these guys feel this false sense of confidence because they're chatting online. They're not face-to-face. This guy did this face-to-face, which makes him, in my mind, even more of a dangerous predator.
Now look, to be fair, right, these are just allegations at this point. He is
Correct.
innocent until proven guilty, although feels like a tough case to defend. Why do I say that? So police were able to identify this suspect as Isaiah Navarro, a now 38-year-old man, okay, a grown man asking for a child's phone number. And, you know, I know, Chris, you get asked this all the time, but if these allegations are true, what compels somebody to do this?
Well, besides wanting to take advantage of a child, obviously they have a criminal mind. They've fantasized about this. They have whatever happens in a human soul and mind that makes them want to be attracted to children. It's multiple potential causes, but they act out on this fantasy. And in many cases, it's fueled by an addiction to porn and child porn, and now they're going to go try and do this. So this guy, I'm guaranteeing you, Jesse, this isn't his first time. Now, he's been driving up and down all around Glendale looking for a target, and he sees this young girl who he senses is vulnerable, but he picked the wrong one, and thankfully, that's who he picked.
Unfortunately, there are times where people, the minors in these situations, they may give the phone number. They may start a relationship, and they might not tell the parents or their guardians, right?
We saw a case recently of a guy who was arrested 19 years ago in a sting. He just was recently caught in California in a real relationship with a real 14-year-old girl, a sexual, physical relationship, where he groomed her for weeks and weeks and weeks on a social media platform, and then he coerced her into giving him her cell phone number and was working her that way.
See, what I find difficult probably for law enforcement and prosecutors is technically it's not illegal for him to have a conversation with a minor.
Exactly.
And it could look innocuous. It might not pass the level, but over time it passes the level, right? There's certain ones that just immediately act upon
Well, this
it.
is why this case is so interesting to me, because obviously they made an arrest. We can pretty much understand what he was up to. Why else would you approach a child and ask for a phone number? I mean, it's nefarious.
I haven't even gotten to the text messages yet.
Right, exactly. And then, because of the arrest, they get his phone. And the phones often are a forensic treasure trove of evidence in these cases.
So let's just analyze this for a second. So now you have her account. You have the home Ring doorbell footage that shows what seems to be the interaction. And now let's go into the next part. So what happened after this girl got away? Well, according to Glendale police, Navarro started texting the phone number the teen had given him. But remember, that was the mom's phone? So according to the New York Post, the mom had already turned the phone over to police. So they were the ones responding to Navarro. And I'm sorry to do this, but for purposes of this story, so you understand the specifics of what we're dealing with and how it's going to support the charges that he later faces, they provided screenshots of some of these messages. So one starts with a message from the victim's side. How old are you? And the suspect allegedly replies, I'm 37. Is that okay? With a questioning emoji. I'm a minor is the response. And you know what he allegedly responds back? Gotcha. Up to talk on the phone? So, Chris, she flat out, well, the police flat out
say
this
in
it's a minor,
the transcripts of the discussions between decoys posing as teenage kids and the predators in our investigations. They always say, well, is that okay? As if a child giving permission to continue the conversation would be okay in any way. It's a child. They cannot give consent. But these guys work their way around it in their mind to make it think it's okay. She said it was okay.
And just to be clear, in your experience, have you ever seen that as a successful defense? Well, it was
Never.
a mistake. It was a mistake. She told me one thing.
No, because they're always, the evidence is always in the transcripts. Now you've got law enforcement officers who are controlling the chat, who know the threshold for a felony. So as you mentioned earlier, just going by a child and saying, hey, where's the McDonald's? That may be a tough case to prove that he was up to no good. But now they've got the chats. Now they've got the backbone of the case. And now they know that he's crossed the legal threshold and can arrest him for a felony.
And that, by the way, if we double down on this idea, why it's so important to have law enforcement involved and the professionals involved, because they know
exactly
the
where it
line
is.
for their
You know,
felony.
look, when we started doing the predator investigations 21 years ago, we initially had an online watchdog group do the chats because law enforcement widely wasn't doing it the way they are now. That was very successful. The first two investigations, we didn't have law enforcement involved, even though law enforcement got involved later to make some of the cases. But since the third investigation, we've always worked with law enforcement, and now we always have law enforcement decoys doing the chats. There's no questions about chain of custody. They know where the threshold is. They never make the first approach. It's always the predator that makes the first approach.
And those details matter in particularly these kind of
Well,
prosecutions.
in court they do, yeah.
So now let's move on to the next screenshot. That wasn't the only one we had. So the next screenshot shows a lot more of this alleged conversation. Quote, "My mom will get mad, so will my dad. I'm only 14. And Navarro allegedly responds, "Maybe one day, can you keep our convo between me and you a secret? When is the best time to call you?" In other words, yes. So Chris, he seems to be really pushing to talk on the phone, and you mentioned this idea of grooming, right? And it made me think the maybe one day line, is that a sense, and you probably have seen this before, you know what, I'm not going to do anything now, but I'll be in this person's life until they reach the age.
Well, that's what they say,
Yeah,
and that's part of how they rationalize this in the predator's mind. Well, I'm setting this up for later when it's legal. Well, no. They would commit a crime the next day if they had the opportunity. And even if they were grooming for the child to be of age, it's still wrong, it's still illegal, it's still a foul thing to do.
And I set that up because somebody might be looking at this and say, well, maybe he just wanted to talk, maybe it was down the road.
What are you doing talking with a 14-year-old girl?
Right, well, this is how we know that you just made the point that if he had the opportunity now, he would act on it. Well, again, the allegations are. Because the police also say the text messages got very graphic, with Navarro reportedly asking for specific sex acts. There's a screenshot that reads, "I want to make you," and then it's blacked out, redacted. He also allegedly says, "Send me pictures." And she responds, or the person who's operating the phone responds, with a cat with heart eyes and a sweating emoji. He allegedly writes back, "Please," and then he hearted the emoji message. And the person who's operating the phone responds, "I already washed all my makeup off." So that becomes the point where I don't know how he defends this.
You can't defend it. The evidence is there. It's in black and white. It's digitally collected. There's no way that law enforcement can alter it. The defense attorney can raise all these issues, but there's a trail here. This is not even close to entrapment. There's no defense in terms of, I thought she was of age, or I was just being friendly, or I was just trying to mentor the child or keep her out of trouble. None of that will work in this case.
I forgot to mention the biggest part about it. It's not like they just got the messages and then went to his house. So Glendale police say Navarro wanted to meet up, right? Agreed to a time and a place to meet up with. He seems to know, or allegedly know, that this person's a 14-year-old girl. But what happens when he gets there? The police are waiting for him. And Navarro was arrested and charged with luring a minor for sexual exploitation and attempting to commit sexual conduct with a minor. And by the way, we did a quick search of Isaiah Navarro on TruthFinder to find out a little bit more background information about him. And we put in his name, location, his profile immediately popped up, showing information like his addresses, possible job connections, the charges he faces in Maricopa County. And Law&Crime, we partner with TruthFinder. We use it to get details on people involved in our stories. But even if you don't work in true crime, this can be an excellent resource to give you some peace of mind. After all, it's one of the largest public record search services in the United States. And with a paid subscription service, you can get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. So right now, if you're interested, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/LC Sidebar. Now, Navarro was booked into the Maricopa County Jail, held on a $250,000 bond. His court case is ongoing. But here's the thing. According to Arizona legislative code, luring a minor for sexual exploitation would typically mean a sentence of at least 5 years in prison, maximum of 15 years, because I think we looked at the statute and it's actually, typically it's a class 3 felony, but because the alleged victim is under the age of 15, it's enhanced. Then Committing unlawful sexual conduct with a minor who's 14 years old or younger is a Class 2 felony, but since this was attempted unlawful sexual contact with a minor, the penalties would likely be maybe less severe than if Navarro had actually assaulted the victim, but sentencing would be pursuant to Arizona's Dangerous Crimes Against Children statute, which our understanding mandates a minimum 5-year sentence, which, by the way, in these kinds of cases you think would be appropriate, right?
I think so, as long as there's registration as a sex offender after, and there's a probationary period after, and there's mandatory treatment and therapy. Now, sometimes that therapy doesn't work. Sometimes the probation can be violated. These guys are often caught with a second phone or a secret computer access program, but at least if they have to register as a sex offender, they're on the radar of law enforcement. And if they get him again, he's going away for a long time.
Assuming these allegations are true, what is the level of recidivism with these particular kinds of crimes? And I know we talk about all different kinds of crimes.
We do. It's a hard number to say
Sure.
with any authority. 30% recidivism? Do we catch everybody who commits this crime again? They're different guys. I happened to be at a birthday party over the weekend, and I was chatting with a guy who's a psychiatrist who deals with addiction, and we got into porn addiction and the whole path into being a predator. And you just don't know. It's very individually specific. I mean, we've had guys who stay out of trouble for 20 years, or at least don't get caught for 20 years, and then they get clipped again at the age of 60.
Yeah, that's frightening, to say the least. By the way, one more thing about this. So according to a police report that was reviewed by 12 News, Navarro sent a selfie to the phone number, by the way, that the 14-year-old had given and demanded photos in return. And that meetup was set up in the parking lot of a local gym, with the police report indicating that when they got there and called the number that had been texting, Navarro's phone rang. So again, another way of identifying him as the suspect here. And police told 12 News that they don't have any record of Navarro being arrested or in jail for any reason. And Glendale police have said that there could be more victims out there. They want anyone who might know something to give them a call. Do you think that that's something we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I think it is. And I think that's the reason why these cases need to be so widely publicized, because there will be other people, in all likelihood, who will come forward and say, this happened to my daughter, this happened to my son. Even if it's not the Navarro case, there will be other cases where something similar has happened. And this allows law enforcement to follow up on these tips. And the success of this investigation, by the way, will embolden this law enforcement agency to keep an eye out and do this in a more proactive way. This is why we do the stings. This is why law enforcement does the stings. Why wait until it happens when you can go out there and conduct an investigation and catch guys who are going to do this anyway? It's about being proactive. It's about community policing in this very way. It's so important.
One of the chilling aspects of it could be that if he didn't have any kind of record to go into
Yeah.
it, everybody has to commit their first crime.
Sure.
Everybody starts one way
Right.
with their first
And
crime.
often they don't get caught the first time.
And it makes me wonder, there'd be no way to know something like this. We talk about it all the time with teachers, right? You do a full background check, everything looks good. No one has a crystal ball, which makes it really scary.
No, it is. And that's why it always comes down to the relationship between the parent and the child. Many of these guys won't be locked up forever. There's no magic cure for this. And your best defense is the relationship you have with your child. And this girl is a primary example of that. She was sharp on her feet. She told her mom. They went to police. And what a great textbook successful investigation. A reverse sting, where they got this guy, and now he's going to face justice.
In these cases, do you usually see a plea deal? Do you see it going to trial?
Usually there's a plea, almost universally. In fact, on the podcast, Predators We've Caught, I see a couple of these cases that look like they're going to go to trial, and we're actually going to be in the courtroom to cover and see how this goes down, because I want to be there. I want my cameras there. And my microphones there to capture it, because I want to look these guys in the eye and see their excuses.
Do you have to testify in these cases?
I've never had to testify. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've had to testify a couple times remotely in preliminary examinations, but very seldom, because the evidence is all in the chats.
Yeah, it's all there.
The evidence is all in the video.
And this is one of those cases where, again, look, he's innocent until proven guilty, but between, I don't know, everything that they had to identify him, the surveillance, her testimony, the text messages, the phone calls, it's a
And they
very tough
know
case
he knows that he was talking to somebody who said they were underage.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah,
big problem.
It's in the chat.
Chris Hansen, great seeing you.
Always
Thank
great
you so
to be
much.
here,
By the
Jesse.
way,
Thank you.
when you go to a dinner party, do people just always like? I feel like everybody wants to strike up a conversation with you.
Well,
I feel like they do.
people are always polite, but yeah, it's you know, it's a topic that people want to talk about.
Yeah,
And so, you know, when you go to a dinner party.
Nobody's talking to me.
That's not true.
Nobody's
They want to know all about your show and all the stuff you do and
Yeah.
you know, the law and everything
Yeah.
else. And fashion, obviously.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll tell you, it's funny. I was on a program recently, and they introduced me. They go, Jesse Weber from the Law and Order Network. I just went with it. I said, "Sounds okay,
great,
sure."
okay,
But
fine.
I know. Yeah, thank you, Chris Hansen. Good
All
to
right,
see
buddy.
you. Thanks
Jesse,
so much.
always a
Appreciate
pleasure.
it. All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.